Sorry about the cough. Hello and welcome to NARC Live on Wednesday, the 25th of March, 2026. Coming to you live from Norfolk on the east coast of England with two people with a bit of colds. But anyway, with Tammy M0TC.
Hello.
And me, David G7URP. I thought I got in just before the fader went up. Never mind. On tonight's show, Mike, VA3MW from Flex Radio, joins us to bring us the latest news on Flex, and in particular, he's going to talk about their Aurora system, which is a wonderful, efficient way of transmitting, as you'll find out later on. We take a look at our Super Science Saturday at the CNS School, just over a week ago, and we find out what on earth this is or what it's used for. Had a few entries, can't possibly say whether they're right or wrong, but if you think you know what this is and what it can be used for, then pop it onto BATC or Facebook and we'll read it out when we come to that part of the programme. But first, mainly our news tonight is talking about next Wednesday's meeting, actually, which for this club is very important for any organisation. It's the annual general meeting. And I know that might sound a bit boring, maybe, but it is an important time. It's a time when we're going to look back at the last year of the club's life. So people like me, I'm the chairman of the club, and I'll be looking back at the year, and there'll be an accountant's review as well, treasurer's review, and things like that. We'll also be presenting awards. We'll be finding out what we raised for charity last year, and no spoilers here, but it is a very significant amount, the most significant in my tenure anyway of this club. So that's something to look for. And of course, you will be able to vote for your chosen charity who we are going to support this year in 2026. I've already had 5 entries now, 5 proposals rather, and it's decided by a show of hands on the night. Look, if I look back about 10, 15 years ago, we didn't even do something like this. We literally didn't really have a charity as such, but it's something that's been part of our DNA really, and something that the club does. And so apart from raising money for our own club, which we mainly do at the Barford Radio Rally event in July, we have various other things like raffles and other events, and sometimes silent key sales that we do, and some money goes towards our charity. And it really can be a significant amount. In other words, it can make a big difference to a charity, whether it's large or small. So that's all coming up at the AGM, which is next Wednesday in person at the CNS School, and our usual room. You can see there, we're open as usual from 7 p.m. and there is the AGM between 8 p.m. and about 9 p.m. Now you'll notice that on there as well it is our AGM, but we also hold our construction competition that night. We found it just adds a little bit of lightness and a bit of interest as well to the evening. So when people arrive from 7 o'clock until just before 8 o'clock, you'll be able to show things to enter into the construction competition. There are no real rules except that it must be your own work, and it's a construction competition, so we're not after especially your own designs or anything like that. It's the quality of construction, the attention to detail, attention to safety, that sort of thing. And last year's winner of the competition, who was Martin G7UGB, will be the judge as well of this year's competition. We think that's the appropriate way to go forward. So every year the judge for each competition is the previous year's winner. So if you've made anything at all, it doesn't have to be even in the last year. It can be whenever you have made it, as long as it's your own work. It can be a commercial kit, it can be someone else's design, it can be your own design. As long as you've made it yourself, you can bring it between at about 7 o'clock and display it. Bring any supporting documents or signs or anything for it as well, saying what it is, what it does, maybe any circuit diagrams or other instructions that you've followed to make it. And then the judge will go round, and during that night next week during the AGM, we'll be announcing the winner as judged by last year's winner. I hope that makes sense. There's all the things that are going to be happening. So that's next Wednesday between 7 and 9:30 at CNS School. Hope to see lots of you there. Now, a week and a bit ago, in fact last Saturday week, we were asked again to go to CNS School for their Super Science Saturday event. That's hard to say.
Super Science Saturday?
Yeah, Super Science Saturday event at the school. It's part of British Science Week, and many schools around the country and other groups do science displays open to the public. And these are just some of the pictures we're going to show you now. So we've got our Bright Sparks, our younger members there, and there's 5 of our Bright Sparks there. We've got Edward, Joseph and Jack, and then on the right we've got Mac, and next to him Oliver. And there's Nick and Oliver's dad there as well, helping him there. So that was in one of the big classrooms at the back of the school. They're all making a lovely RSGB FM radio kit, and it was a really nice kit. And I'm writing up a short report for the RSGB. They donated these kits to us in conjunction with the RCF. They were jointly funded, and they gave us 6 kits. And the youngsters all did say they really enjoyed making them, and they all worked as well, which I must say, not wishing to knock some of the little kits that you can get from China, which we tend to give the youngsters to make, but it doesn't always work that way, that everybody's kit works. So it's a well-designed kit, I think supplied by Kanga Electronics, but a kind of limited edition because it had the RSGB logo on it. Anyway, looking around the room as well, you can just see on the left there's some of the display boards that we've used before to show various aspects of electronics and radio. You can see there, you watch your voice with a little oscilloscope. Malcolm there just looks like he's talking to somebody about there. He was mainly demonstrating Morse code. In the middle there, 2 youngsters are pondering over an electronics kit in the middle of the room, just making various things from a book. And then further towards the back, you can see on the left-hand side Steve G0KY, who set up a complete radio station there to show the public what was going on. And then James M0UKS standing there is explaining APRS system to some visitors as well. We're not, as you can probably appreciate with this sort of event, it's not appropriate to show people's faces, so there's only so many pictures that we can show. There's Tammy there. She was part of this team, talking to somebody there about... Do you remember what you were talking about?
It's Oliver's mum, actually, I think.
Oh, was it Oliver's mum?
We were
Okay,
just chatting.
that's probably why we can show that face. Yeah. Okay. And we just show various things that you can do with electronics. So some of it is radio. I think that probably is Nick there with maybe a crystal set.
Crystal set, yeah.
Which is still, believe me, fascinates young people. It's very hard in this day of smartphones, a day and age of smartphones, when they can do so much with electronics they have. But if you can show them a complete radio with 5 components, which needs no batteries, the little box there that you can see on the table, in fact I put the 5 main components that you need. There's some wire, a germanium diode, an earpiece, a resistor and something else, and say that if you ever stuck on a desert island and you wanted to get in touch and find out what's happening in the world, that's all you'd need. So it does fascinate youngsters now, and there's some other youngsters there playing around with the electronics kit, which just snapped together in the middle of the room. That's the spark of invention, which of course is Morse code, which started all this transmitter and radio stuff off. And Malcolm there is demonstrating Morse code, and you can see that when the youngsters send their own name or receive their own name, they get a little certificate as well with their name on it, which Malcolm signs, and then on the back of that is the Morse code, so they can take it away, and they love to have a code that their parents usually don't know. And this is one other display there, watch your voice, as I mentioned earlier. This is an oscilloscope really, and showing you what a computer or a piece of circuitry makes out of your voice into a microphone. One final picture there, that's Steve with an HF radio station that we set up. So
and a flapjack.
Oh, and a flapjack. What, is that anything to do with the radio?
Don't think so.
No, okay. But anyway, as you could hopefully see, if you were to go in that classroom at this Super Science Saturday, you get an idea about radio and electronics. And I think we're probably the only sort of exhibit there who actually display that sort of thing, surprisingly. But there's chemistry and biology and what other things going on in some of the other rooms.
I didn't go to many rooms actually this time.
We were quite busy,
the big science where they like blow up some things.
Yeah, and that's the chemistry stuff.
Yeah.
Bang, and all that sort of thing. But anyway, our thanks to Steve G0KY, James M0UKS, Tammy M0TC, Martin G7UGB, Malcolm G3PDH, and myself. We put on that display at the school.
And Nick, you missed Nick out.
Oh, and Nick, did I leave? Yeah, sorry, Nick M0HGU as well. Thanks to all of those for all their support on that event. we think it's really good to give something back to our host, the school, and I'm sure all the visitors enjoyed it. Before my voice goes completely, I've done more talking now than I've done all day. We're going on to members' news. Only one bit of news from you this week, and this came from Bob G6PWS, who sent us this picture and says this is seen in our village, and I think he's serious here. This really is. We're all seeing lots of potholes, but I've never seen one quite sort of like a cruising port. Something like anything.
Some of them are big enough for it, aren't they?
They are big, yeah. Yeah, pretty scary. I mean, it's a serious subject, of course, but that's a bit of light relief from it. Anyway, thank you very much for that picture, Bob. Do keep letting us know what you do, and any pictures like that at all, even if they're not strictly speaking radio, it helps keep in touch. Send them to radio@dcpmicro.com. We'd love to receive them, and if we can get them by about 3 o'clock when we do a NARC Live, which is usually every other week, then we'll be sure to show them on the show. Right, my voice is giving, so Tammy, over to you for Little People.
My voice might not be much better.
No.
Well, the Little People this week is actually a little bit different because, I don't know if you know, but we went to Legoland at the weekend.
Yes.
Miniature places. So this is our
right, well,
Little
I don't know
People
what
this
you're
week. It's
going to
actually
show.
a little video. So,
Is it? Okay.
But they've got
yes.
an actual Kennedy Space Centre there, complete with a shuttle that goes up and down.
Well,
On a 10-minute countdown.
Yeah, I didn't know you were going to show this.
Which is very cool. So it's a different kind of miniature people this week because they are miniature. They're not quite as miniature as...
I mean, I think it's
the
just worth
normal
pointing out to
miniature
everybody at home now, they're watching this presumably on their telly or their laptop or their screen as well. This is all made out of Lego.
Yeah.
Traditional Lego as well, not special Lego, not fine Lego. And you can, if you look closely, you can see the jagged lines, I suppose, of making it out of square bricks. But it's pretty amazing because the whole place, I've never been there before.
This is the whole Kennedy Space Centre part of it, which is very cool.
It is. And
so I thought we'd have that on miniature people.
And looking like that, you just wouldn't know that was Lego, would you?
No.
Initially. So anyway,
very cool.
Really good. Thanks, Tammy. That's a different one to normal.
Yeah.
Okay. So, as I said, please do keep in touch. Let us know your details of your pictures and things that you've been to see and do. We love to share them with everybody. Now, back to that competition. And 2 weeks ago, we showed you this picture and said, what on earth is this? Or what is it for? And we've had a few entries. Has anybody online put...
I don't think we've had it online.
Nobody online knows. No, nobody on BATC. We've got 32 people watching there, but nobody... commenting there. And anybody on there? No. Okay, so right, well, we'll read out what people think then. So Brian M7SEY says, I am thinking some kind of carabiner multi-tool.
Tom G6TOM, I'd say this is a key fob with a beer bottle opener, a blot over maker's name, and various scraping, cutting things that never get used, although they seemed indispensable at the time.
That's a bit of cynicism coming in there, isn't it? Bob GSTU says, David, is this week's mystery object a combination bottle opener?
Richard Evans G0VCW says, this week's object is a dog pet tool for when out on walkies. My one included a nail file, a tick remover, a burr remover, and most importantly, a bottle opener in case the dog wants a Newcastle brown ale. I think our northern friends call it a bottler dog. Maybe that part is for the dog walker.
And I tell you what, I saw a little screen pop up on all these mini screens in front of us, and this is from our guest in America, Mike Walker from Flex, who's entered. I know. He says it's a clip-on belt bottle opener. Okay, that's what he says. Bob G6PWS says that it's a bottle opener, clips onto keys. Or belt, or wherever you want to clip it onto. I had a similar one to this, but going through an airport to get onto an EasyJet in 2002, the security guard decided it was an offensive weapon and confiscated it. I couldn't argue, as I needed to board the plane, but never bothered to get another one. Do you want to read that one, Tammy, that's online?
Mike GAEY says it looks like a combination of bottle opener and a dog grooming tick and burr remover.
And I'm just trying to find it on email because it came in late and it didn't make the script. And this is from Martin G7UGB. He says, I've got no idea what it is, but the station master here at Netherwood thinks it's a shirring plate, whatever that is, for an old Singer sewing machine. I've just been told it's used to gather the fabric up before stitching. Have a great evening. That's what Martin says. So
I have seen something that looks a little bit like
there's
that.
a sewing machine. I thought we'd kind of finished with sewing machines.
Maybe.
But anyway, we better reveal what it is.
We can reveal it is a pet multi-tool, which does indeed remove tick spurs. It has a nail file and also a bottle opener for the human in their life.
Yeah, yes. And I think actually Richard G0VCW got closest to that really, because he did say that it was for the dog walker, although he didn't mention about the ticks and things, probably because he didn't want to spoil the tone of the evening.
He did say that.
Did he?
Yeah.
Did he say ticks?
He
Oh, he
said
did.
my
Yes, you're
one
right.
included
I'm sorry. Well, then you have a full marks, Richard, and if we gave away a prize, but we're too tight for that, but if we did give a prize, you'd win it, because I think that's bang on, and thanks to everybody else who entered it as well. Really good, interesting item, and thanks, of course, to Steve G3EVA, who has a big dog in his life, of course, and I'm sure that's actually used quite regularly. It looks like actually Alfie's coat there.
That is Alfie's coat, yeah.
Yeah, lovely. So thanks very much for sending that. Now, we've got something different for you this week, but it's real, and it came from one of you, our members, and you sent this picture and said, what on earth is this? And what on earth is this for? But I think what on earth is this really? Do you know what that is? This person took the picture, so it's very real, and very real now. If you know what that is, you've got 2 weeks to let us know. Just send us your answer, please, to radio@dcpmicro.com. We do put this picture on the newsletter and also on Facebook, but please don't put serious entries on Facebook, as I had to take one off the other day. Just because it spoils it for everybody else, really. This is only a for fun game, but if you put the answer and everybody else sees it, it kind of just takes away the fun of entering. So there we are. That's this. I wonder if you know what that is or what it's for. It's easy when you know how, as they say. I know, but I don't think I would have known had I not read the description with it. Anyway, we're about to meet our guest, Mike Walker from Flex, but firstly, we're just going to cover what's happening at the club in the next week. This coming week at NARC, we've got on Sunday, the 7 o'clock, we've got the GB2RS News on GB3MB. On Monday at 7:30, the Monday Night Net, also on GB3MB. And then at 8 p.m, we've got the CW Net as well. Next Wednesday, as I mentioned earlier, on April the 1st, but this is serious, it's not on April Fool's Day. This is our annual general meeting, traditionally on the first Wednesday of April. And that would be holding our annual general meeting. And don't forget the construction competition as well, where you can show anything at all that you've made. It's in our usual room between 7 and 9:30 at CNS. And as I always say, don't forget those stories and pictures, and also this card, which we do send to anybody you feel will be cheered for a card from your club. We'll add your name to ours and send it to whoever you wish. Just drop us an email, please. Well, now I'd like to say almost this person needs no introduction. We have featured Mike on this show before. That was some years ago. We were talking a little while ago, about 7:15, just to find out when that was. And I think, and Tammy and I'll be talking, we think this is probably sort of COVID times, so maybe 5 years ago or so. But it's a very well-known company, Flex Radio, probably the best-known company for SDRs. I'm sure that's what Mike would say. But without further ado, anyway, let's go over to Mike now. Meeting Mike, VA3MW. Hello, Mike.
Hi, how's everybody?
We're good, thank you. Thank you so much for joining us. You're in the Canada, aren't you, at the moment?
I am in Toronto, correct.
Yeah. Good. And we've got a real shack behind you as well, which is always good to see. So, and we're looking forward to hearing from you tonight. And I think you're going to feature mainly on your new Aurora system, which has taken the world by storm, really.
Yeah, we'd love to talk about that. So I have a pretty cool slide deck here, and if I need to, David, move on a bit faster, just say so. But
sure.
Whenever you're ready.
Well, we'll hand over to you, but as always to everybody at home now, if you're watching this live on Wednesday night at 7:51 p.m. in the UK GMT time, Zulu time, then you can ask questions of Mike at any time, either on Facebook or BATC, and I'll read them to him at the end. We've also had one advanced question as well, Mike, which I shall read to you again at the end as well. But over to you for now. I won't interrupt your flow of your presentation, and hopefully we'll get some questions and comments at the end.
No problem at all. And David made me keep the Reel Shack up and not put the green screen across, and so it's a Reel Shack and it's a mess in places, so it fits right in. So I am going to talk to you about a new radio, Flex. If you're an HF operator, generally our HF radios are, as ham operators, and I've been one for quite some time, geez, I'm counting in half centuries now, have been 100-watt radios, 160 through to 6 meters. So this is an HF radio discussion. And not much has really changed in those in forever. And if you look at it, right, if you bought a new radio, it was the same but a little bit different with a few more features or whatever. It was still a 100-watt radio. It didn't make you any louder on the air. So over the years, as HF operators, if you lived in an urban environment, and where I am here in Toronto, I'm in an urban environment, the noise floor has gone up, and I'm sure you've all seen it. And the noise floor has gone up by almost 20 dB in some places, and that means it takes a lot more transmitted signal for the other guy to hear you. So we can't generally do anything about the weak signals, but things that have increased the noise floor are LED bulbs. We used to blame plasma TVs, but I think that's not the case anymore as much. Switching power supplies. I tell you, if you walk around your house with a handheld on AM and go look for all the noisy power supplies or your LAN or network, you would be impressed, but not really impressed about how noisy they are. Solar inverters, battery chargers. If you have a nice home drill battery charger and you keep the charger and the charger plugged in all the time, try unplugging it. They're incredibly noisy. So it used to be then in the day 100 watts on HF was a lot, but 100 watts doesn't get through like it used to. And that increase in noise floor is about worth 2 S units. Now, in case you're not aware of the relationship between decibels and S units, it's about 6 decibels of RF energy for every S unit, and so keep that in mind. And so the bands have not really gotten worse. They've just gotten to the point where it's harder for us to hear because it's, again, the noise floor. And by the way, I've seen that all the way up to VHF and UHF. Now my dollars are in US dollars, but I'll let you guys convert that to pounds because I know as a Canadian I can do that in my head. But the old-fashioned way, if you wanted to get from up to 500 watts from 100 watts and you started brand new, you're going to end up with about 47 pounds of hardware. So that's the radio, the power supply, the tuner, the amplifier. It's going to cost you about $7,000 US, plus any cables and stuff you need. And then, believe it or not, it's going to produce a lot of heat, about 800 watts of heat to get that 500 watts out. Well, how does that make sense? Not very efficient, isn't it? It's about 40% efficiency. And this is sort of what it could look like. Now, of course, we're going to use Flex radios as our example, but we have a Flex radio here. We've got a Elecraft Cat 500, all wonderful equipment. KPA 500 amplifier, a nice LP 100 watt meter on top. And this is our sample example of what we're using. That 500, that 47 pounds comes right out of how heavy that amplifier is. And if you've ever built one, it's got a big, heavy toroid in it. And if you've operated HF, you've probably heard the saying, at least I heard it a long time ago, that 500 watts is more important. You know, it's the first 500 watts that counts. And as an example, if you start with 100 watts and the guy could just hear you, to make even a noticeable difference in that, you have to go from 100 to 500. And that will give you just over an S unit of gain. If you want to go almost another S unit over the 100, you actually have to go over 1500 watts because it's a logarithmic scale. And that's why the the gain over 100 looks a little strange. In fact, I don't even think that the number is right, that 11 dB. I'm going to have to go check that. But the point is, it's about 3S units. It's still really not worth it from a cost perspective. Have a look at this chart. So if we, well, let's talk in wattage now. I know you're at 230, 240 volts. North America is 110. So I can't play the card that says, well, you don't have to get the ham shack rewired for 220 volts because you already have it in the UK. But a typical 100-watt radio draws 250 watts. You get 100 watts out and you produce 150 to 200 watts of heat. But a 500-watt radio, well, we're up to 1,250 watts of current we're drawing, and we're getting 500 watts out, and we're generating 750 to 800 watts of heat. And at 1,500 watts, what's your max now, David, in the UK? Is it 1,500?
It's 1,000, actually.
That's 1,000. Well, that's a whole lot more heat, and that's all at 40% efficiency. So keep that in mind as we move forward. And well, this isn't really true, but when you ask an AI to draw in a comparable diagram, this is what you get: a radio on fire. Really should have been something like a Henry amplifier with a big tube glowing red. I'm going to have to update that. Because our typical radios today, because they run in Class A amplification or AB, are only 40% efficient. So Flex Radio back in May of 2025 came out with the Aurora radio. It is a complete 500-watt radio. It has a built-in AC power supply, so you don't need the 12-volt power supply, which is just legacy stuff. You don't really need it anymore, at least on a regular basis. It's a 500-watt transmitter, has a built-in tuner, it weighs 18 pounds, and it also has built-in bandpass filters. Should you be operating in a high RF environment like a field day event, or SO2R contesting where you've got other transmitters. All this is built in. And it's the brainchild of Tony Brock Fisher, Kilo 1 Kilo Papa. Tony's been on our staff since he came to us with the idea back in 2019. Now, the technology called envelope elimination and restoration is not Tony's idea, even though he thought of it organically. It was not until later he went and looked at or searched on the internet and went, whoa, somebody else invented it, called Leonard Kahn. But he called this project the Polar Explorer. He met with ICOM, Kenwood, Yaesu, Elecraft, and Flex Radio back in 2019. Said, hey, we should build this. Flex Radio saw the vision, and we jumped on board with Tony right away. He had started the idea back in 2013. And you can go read more about envelope elimination and restoration, or the Polar Explorer, in QEX. You can Google it quite easily using those terms, and you can find it on ARRL's website. It's not behind a paywall. It's very easy to read. So how does it get to that efficiency? Well, I did mention Leonard Kahn, who came up with the idea back in 1952. And it's even used today. It's not new to the radio world, just new to the amateur world. It's often used in situations that have digital transmissions on frequencies where we're not trying to take up the entire HF spectrum, maybe a TV channel or some sort of high power data channel. But amateurs are really hard on their equipment because we want them to cover from 160 meters through to 6 meters. So Aurora uses this EER, or polar modulation, by splitting the transmitted signal into a Class D, oops, just a second. Where was I? There it is. A Class D format that can be used by using a phase and amplitude modulation, sort of like an IQ signal. And again, called polar modulation. We have the envelope, which contains the amplitude, and then we have the phase, which is the constant amplitude carrier. And because now we can amplify these at Class D, which is 80 to 90% efficient, then we can make a radio that's really power efficient. And that's pretty slick. And traditional linear amplifiers, Class A or AB, are not very efficient at 40% because they have to amplify the signal linearly, meaning whatever comes in goes out. And you get a nice clean signal in, you get a mostly clean signal that goes out. You get a dirty signal that comes in, you get a dirtier signal that comes out. That's why we have something called APD, which I'll talk about in a minute. And that's why we have to use Class D amplification. And it's because of the bias, you've probably heard this term, of the switching transistors is really narrow instead of trying to use the entire range. And that's what makes it incredibly efficient. It's very rapid on-off switching. And this is sort of what it looks like. You have your audio come in a digital format now. Oh yeah, you can see my mouse. In an IQ format. We do some digital signal processing magic to deal with APD, or smart signal as we call it, which is an adaptive pre-distortion technology to make it clean. We split it into an audio and like the IQ formats I was talking about, and then we recombine them to produce 500 watts out, and we resample it to go back into the radio to clean it back up. So what makes this really cool? It doesn't get hot. We had Dayton had this, you can see the picture above. I can see if I can blow that up. No, it's not in a blow up phase. That allows us to run key down 500 watts for 8 hours straight. And that's not like 30 seconds on, 30 seconds off. That's brick on key, walk away, and we end up with the radio sitting at a nice cool 80 degrees Fahrenheit or less. In fact, it's so cold in my remote shack where I run my station through the winter, the transmitting power amplifier transistors are no hotter, about 3 degrees Celsius hotter than the air temperature. They just don't get hot. And that's even running 500 watts of RTTY. The dummy load over here is a 500 watt dummy load. And believe it or not, that was sitting at 196 degrees Fahrenheit. And if you look on the left, let me just try something here. Nope. If you look on the left, that picture is a picture of the entire power amplifier, bandpass filters, and antenna tuner. And it's about 6 inches by 6 inches by 6 inches. And it sits on a heat sink that's about 6 inches by 6 inches by 1 inch, and it doesn't get hot. So we were able to jam this all into the original cabinet for the Flex 8000 series, which I have 2 slides away. But I want to talk to you about the different models. There's 4. And if you're not familiar with Flex radio, we have radios that have 1 or 2, the heart of the unit, spectral capture units, or SCUs. And it's the SCU that connects to the antenna for both transmitting and receiving. And it's the SCU that digitizes or turns into numbers the entire HF spectrum from 30 kilohertz through to 54 megahertz all the time. And this is why on a Flex radio, you can have a receiver slice, a slice of the radio spectrum, on anywhere in between, anytime, whenever you want. Some radios have 2 slices, some have 4, and some radios have 1 SCU and some have 2. What does 2 mean? Well, it means that I can use 2 different antennas simultaneously on the same radio. And I know, when am I ever going to do that? Digital mode guys do it all the time. What I do with my Aurora 520, which has 2 spectral capture units, but I generally just use 1 a lot of the time, is though I have 4 slices available. So for me, when 6 meters opens, I can have WSJT running in 3 different places simultaneously. So for me, that's 50.313 for FT8 for North America stuff, 50.323 for stuff happening over the pond, for me, over to your guys' world. I can put another one at FT4 on 50.318. And that leaves me 1 left over. Heck, I can put that down on the CW band of 6 meters. Just an idea of what you can do with it. So this is the radio. This is how clean it looks. It looks like our Flex 6000 series, our Flex 8000 series. This is the Aurora, the 520M, with the front Maestro panel, if you like that user face. But over the last 15 years, Flex has done a great job of divorcing the control panel that I want to use from the RF deck, which I don't need to be sitting beside anymore. And this is different than most radios, not all, but all of Flex Radio's designs that we could take the radio, the physical RF deck, and I could put it out by the antennas at the base of the tower. Maybe it's up on a third floor or a higher floor. I don't need all that coax. Case in point, 4U1 UN at the United Nations, they're ham shacks on the ground floor. It's a tall building. Can you imagine what it would be like to run coax up? I don't know how many floors are in 4U1 UN, but there's a lot. They don't. They have a fiber cable running all the way to the top. And the radio sits out by the antennas, and that means they can hear better, and that means they can transmit better, more RF out, because they're not losing it in waste in coax. In my case, I don't know if you can see over my shoulder here, there's some transmitters and some power amplifiers. That's my satellite station. It used to be sitting in front of me. And I had shelves. Now I just have 3 monitors sitting in front of me. I have a Flex Maestro below me, which is that front panel, and my rotor controller for my satellites. But heck, I don't even touch that anymore because I use a CSN SAT controller to talk to it. And here's the back of the radio, fairly clean. Everybody likes to see the back. We've got 2 antenna ports. That's either for either SCU or for the 510 model. It's the AB switch where you can use one antenna or the other. We have receiving antenna ports. We've got transverter ports, 10 megahertz reference ports, and you'll notice there's a regular machine cord that plugs in here, and a couple of other cool features and functionalities for just about every ham operator to do something cool. Now this is a typical 500 watt station. You've got a radio, you've got an amplifier, you've got a tuner, you have a power supply. It's an Elecraft solution, nothing wrong with that. It's all plugged into a nice octopus. But the risk here is probably not, I'm going to say what you're probably not going to think I'm going to say is every one of those wires picks up RF noise, and they contribute to your receiving noise floor. And you really need to go choke those wires with some Mix 43 or Mix 31 chokes to drop the noise floor down. And because RF is not fussy, what it attaches itself to for common mode currents and noise. Now conversely, it's the back of a Flex radio. And this was my demonstration in Friedrichshafen, but this is also the demonstration in my remote site where I've got just coax hooked up, I've got power, a LAN cable, and then in my case I have a CW key, which is the middle one. But because it's remote, I don't have any microphones and stuff connected because I'm doing it remotely. And by the remote remote can mean, by the way, I have it on my desk, I could be in a different room, I could be visiting a shut-in at a hospital where you can allow the shut-in to get on the air, or it can be in an entirely different country or continent or vacation. So like I said, you get 500 watts, it weighs 18 pounds, it only draws 6 amps at 120 volts or 3 amps at 240, and I did measure that when I was at the WRTC conference. We were testing that into a dummy load. And we get this 500 watts over the 100 watt output. You could drag this out in the field. 18 pounds, you could carry it, hook it up to one of the power cubes that, I think 1,000 watt battery opera power cube. If you ran the radio at 100 watts where it only draws 3 amps, you could probably operate all day multiple modes of CW, FT8, even sideband. And we're even finding now on today's DXpeditions, this is an old picture from Scarborough Reef, but the CY0D expedition that's currently going on today has 6 Aurora radios that weigh 18 pounds. They had to fly everything in. They have an entire budget of only just over 2,000 pounds to get to the island. That included the food, the people, the clothing, and their radios. And they use less fuel. And because they were using Aurora radios, they were actually able to bring more radios to get on the air. Like I mentioned, my remote operation, which you can operate anywhere, that's a flex feature. Whatever remote is for you. You don't need to be a network guru to make it happen. And a little summary here. We end up with a radio that's incredibly efficient, with an incredibly compact design. Another feature is we have CESSB, which gives you more RF top power, so it makes your 100 watts sound like 200 watts. There's less thermal stress on it because we're not heating and cooling everything so much. It's incredibly quiet because the fans don't need to run, and it comes with adaptive pre-distortion. So, David, I'm going to stop there, and maybe we could take some questions.
Okay, all right. Thank you very much, Mike. So if you have got any questions on what Mike has said so far, and I've seen there's at least one or two that we've got been asked, fine. Before we get on to that first question, which comes from Neil Bowers, but please do put those questions onto BATC or Facebook. Now, you mentioned that you've got a built-in power supply, mains power supply, but you also showed it out in the field. So what do you do if you want to run it off 12 volts or 13.8 volts from a car battery?
You can't. You can add an inverter if you want. We've been hearing that some guys have been buying these. I forgot what they're called in North America, but they're like a power cube. They're like this big with 110 volt battery, 110 volt battery with an inverter in it. So you would just plug it in and run.
Okay.
Yeah, like that. But you would have to add an inverter. It's still far more efficient, even because it's running at 80% efficiency, even with the inverter. Yeah,
it just seems slightly odd because obviously for as long as I think most people can remember, most radios, not all, but nearly all, especially current radios, have 12, 13.8 volt inputs, and that's the way it's been. Even though you may not run big HF portable necessarily, so it just seemed to me I was looking for a 12 volt socket on the back, so that was why I was asking.
No, it's a little counter. We have to think about that solution differently if it's important to you, and it may not be the right radio for the job. In my remote presentation, I say if you want to do remote operating with your radio, the radio you own today may not be the right radio to do remote because we think flex radio is better. Here in North America, a lot of our POTA operators go into campgrounds where there is AC power and they just run an extension cord over.
Okay, fine. All right. Thank you for clearing that up. Now, so we've got a question now from Neil Bowers. Haven't got your call sign, or G4 Neil. I try and remember everybody's call sign, but it's with 260 odd members now, it's very hard to remember them all. His question anyway: I can buy a noise reduction unit that uses a second receiver and small antenna to subtract local noise from the main received antenna signal. Correctly adjusted, this works well. Will this tech ever get built into mainstream transceivers?
Absolutely. So things like ANC4s, I know the Audio Meet talks about, there might be one sitting on the shelf above my head. So that's spectral noise subtraction type of thing where they invert the noise, and some of them are very good on some types of noise. Flex Radio in Smart SDR version 4.1.5, which we released a few months ago, and we're about to release 4.2 in the coming weeks or maybe within a month, has new built-in AI algorithms for spectral noise subtraction. And we're able to sample that in the radio and filter out the voice. One of the filters called RNN, I've heard it on 80 meters, and it makes a sidebound QSO almost sound like FM.
Wow, that good.
Yeah.
And I'm going to add a supplementary question, if that's all right, Mike, to that as well.
Sure.
In your opinion, not necessarily Flex's opinion, but yours as an amateur as well as someone who works for a major company in this market, AI, is that going to start affecting the technology that's built inside the radios, do you think?
I presented that whole thing at Hamcation, where I simply said at the end of my presentation was, how do you think AI is going to affect ham radio in the coming 6 months, year even? Hugely. I think what we're going to see happen, well, because I know it's happening in-house, first off, in a software development world, you're going to see more and more rapid software changes hopefully from everybody, because they can produce software in hours, at least the first phase of it in hours, where you take educated developers who can build a good prompt and say, this is what I'm trying to achieve. In fact, we're doing that, seriously exploring and doing some of that in-house even today. And any software house that wants to stay in business needs to do that. I can't write code to save my life because I don't work in it every day, but I have now built 3 of my own little applications to handle some cool integration that I need to work for my own ham shack. So yes, anything in AI is going to impact us. We're probably going to see better designs come out, better noise mitigation. Our AI filters like RNN has been fed noise to help come up with its noise mitigation algorithms. So yes, very much so.
Yeah, I must admit, Mike, I was prompted by Neil's question, because I was thinking, well, you've got hardware at the moment, taking one signal, taking another signal, taking it away, but actually AI would probably make a better job of that ultimately anyway. So good. Oh, okay, interesting. Now, as you know, I was sent a question in advance by Alan G800 because he may not be available to watch this live because unfortunately he's having to attend a funeral of his brother. So he asked me to read this to you, and I know you've given us a quick reply back, but maybe for the benefit of everybody else watching, I can read it to you as well. He says, I watch and have every one of your very helpful setup videos. I own and will not part with a Flex 6700, and the only gripe is that it does not transmit on my favourite HF band, 60 metres or 5 meg band. The last time I checked, this band is allowable in over 90 countries, as well as the USA and the UK. Therefore, can you please explain why 60 metres is not covered in Smart SDR V4.1.5, or produce a video that actually works, as I've tried and failed to get the 5 meg band working. Used most of the 60 meter TX setup variations on the Flex community website. Again, many thanks, Alan G800.
Good. So I'm going to give a bit of history about how the radio works. So we have throughout the world radios that are turfed for their, I think, IRU or country codes, so that we keep you in band and not doing anything illegal. So to answer his question simply, his 6700 will work, and 6700 will work on 60 meters without issue. It's possible he may not have the wrong turf file loaded, but a simple ticket to our support team should get that resolved. And so that's the simple part about that. And the good thing is, because we do that way, radios worldwide, as band allocations change, we're able to send out fixes to do that. Now, case in point, the US just had their 60 meter band totally rejigged, and we have a new 60 meter allocation coming out in 4.2 to help them. But I'm sure we could get Alan sorted out. The other thing to be really aware of when operating on 60 meters is that we really have to know where we're transmitting. It's not like, 20 meters where we just go anywhere between here and here. On 60 meters, we are severely limited by the governments, whoever manages your country's radio licensing, transmit bandwidth. And I know in Canada, for example, that my transmit bandwidth can't exceed 3 kilohertz. So if I make my transmit filters wider than 3, it will not let me transmit because I would be illegal. That also means I need to know where to place my VFO. And in a lot of licensing, it's where's the center of the passband. We're used to talking about the edge of our transmit passband. In upper sideband, we put our VFO here, and then we move over this far going up, or lower sideband, we go low, type of thing. So those play into the math of what allows the radio to go into transmit. But And that's how these turf files work.
Okay, so maybe check the turf files. But I know you did in your reply to me, which I've sent to Alan. You did say to raise a specific note with your support team, and they'll give him a sort of personalised walkthrough of what to check.
Yep.
Thank you for that. Ralph 2M0RHT. This is a fantastic electronics, but are we taking the fun out of radio at some financial cost, which only well-off fams can afford? He asks.
Yes and no.
I should, by the way, Mike, and he won't mind me saying this, he is our Scottish correspondent. And he really won't mind me saying that.
You know, the cool thing about the hobby is there's just so many ways to approach it. From his perspective, you know, the building, the cabling, building an amplifier or interface or building a whole station or integrating it is his enjoyment from the hobby. And that is still there, and that's not going away. We, Kenwood, ICOM, Yaesu, Elecraft, are building radios that are, because the build technology has changed. They're so complex we can't fix the inside anymore, at least not easily. You certainly can't do ours because you need special test stands, etc. But that is the nature of the beast, right? We certainly can't take our phone apart and fix it like we would the one on the desk. And be blunt, it's going to get worse. Things will get smaller, faster, lighter, better battery management. But that still doesn't preclude any of us from picking up any technology in the amateur radio world, making it work however is important to us. We have customers that want to take it home, plug it in, turn it on, and be on the air. That's good. That's what's important to them.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the hobby is, to some extent, has always been like that, hasn't there? Where some people just prefer to use the older radios, the ones without the buttons. I was talking to one of our younger members recently who's new to the hobby, and although he's got a young mind and is always seeing menus and touch screens and all these sort of floating menus, I think sort of he was going along and agreeing the fact that the older traditional radios with a button for everything kind of puts it all in front of you, and you can't forget something then and how to use it. So it's horses for courses, and I guess there's a choice, isn't there, that you can still.
The buttons is a great analogy. The FTDX 5000 by Yaesu, great radio, has. Do you want to guess how many buttons or knobs are on the front of it?
40.
118.
Oh my goodness.
Okay,
yeah.
So don't tell me a flex radio is complex. So 118 buttons or knobs, multiple levels of function and shift, press, hold, function one button, like all these. How do you get more functionality out of buttons? In 6-point font. So none of us are getting any easier to read that 6-point font. So we've either memorized where the button is, or we put our ear down on the desk to try to be able to read it with a magnifying glass and a flashlight, or highlighted a button with nail polish type of thing. And moving, don't forget, we have a front panel. It's very clean. It's called the Maestro. You saw a picture of it. But moving to Smart SDR in GUI, and we can use both, by the way, but moving the GUI on the screen brings my whole screen up in front of me. I can make it as big as I want. And the features that we want to use, antenna switching modes, well, we all know what we want to do with the radio. We just have to find the button. And that's no different from changing from Kenwood to ICOM. You know it's here somewhere. And we've tried to keep it reasonably laid out. The Maestro is by far the best hardware console I've ever used in HF radio, because it is very clean and functional, and it's got VFO knobs, mic speed, mic gain, CW speed, power, and filter. All the stuff you generally use all the time, right here, clean, easy to find.
Okay, Mike, thank you. Next question from Roger G3LDI. He says, "Hi Mike, will the new 4.2 Smart SDR address the CW problems I'm still suffering with on my 8600, i.e. transmit to receive delay?" I do have the delay set.
Oh, I know Roger well.
Yeah. So just for everybody else's benefit as well, even if you know his particular problem. So he says, in brackets, I do have the delay set to less than 100 to address this. But more and more annoying is a dot slurring. I did send a recording in. Also, any chance of having CW timing parameters that we can adjust? Over to you.
Well, there is a fair number. Roger won't like my answer because he's already heard them, but um, I can't remember what speed he operates at, but it is a support issue. There is some delays in the radio. Some of the purest of CW operators are uh, maybe impacted, like a high-speed QSK operator at 30 words a minute. There is some latency in there. I don't know where Roger's situation sits. There's a couple of people that are concerned about it. It's important to him, so I'm not trying to make light of it as well, but I can't go into detail for addressing that or fixing it. I haven't seen all of 4.2 come out, but I guess the good news is when 4.2 is released, it's a free upgrade for him because that would be a performance hit. I'm trying to remember in the discussions if we touched it, so I'll have to wait till the README comes out.
And just roughly for everybody's sake, and Rogers, 4.2, when is that going to hit the streets?
Somewhere in the next month or so. We're already well into testing. It's mostly ready for prime time, but not really ready for prime time. And I'll leak it out. We have a brand new DAX coming out as well in that, which is our digital audio exchange, which is long overdue for an overhaul.
Okay. But
So
obviously,
that's delaying it a bit because when you change an entire subsystem, it's a lot more testing and trying to break it. So.
and although everybody wants these new features now, we also don't want things that aren't fully tested and bug-free, etc., as best you can. So
Right, and we're also able to leverage AI though to find out some really weird stuff. Love or hate AI, it's a reference. It's the smartest, most naive employee you can have, so to speak. That's how I call it sometimes.
Mhm.
But it has the power of being like a master of everything, and so if you can ask it a question, it's going to probably give you a reasonably good answer, or at least allow you to ask more intelligent questions to get to something. Doing it in code reviews, we turned it incredibly valuable.
Yeah, and I guess it's going to be good for some of those repetitive tasks of, and maybe some helping you test, real beta test some of this software.
I use it when I'm writing stuff. It could be a document and say, "Hey, look at this for continuity." So we do that to look at code. Is there anything is there like pointers? I'm not a coder, but stuff that doesn't seem to flow well.
Mm-hmm.
And it may not. You can have it repaired, or you can have it say, "Hey, check what's going on here." And yeah, so we're going to see more of that.
Okay. Richard's G4 CDN. He says, I love my 8600M, which I use remote from the garden shed, but I'm having problems with getting a good CW side tone. Currently running a separate 40 meter audio cable. 40 meter, I guess he means 40 meters long, audio cable from the shed, and also a keying cable.
I think we fixed that. I don't know what he's using for a client. Whether if he's using a Maestro, then there should be no issue. He should have perfect side tone. If he's keying through a computer using something like the Halakey, which is an RS-232 integration, he should be just fine now. So I'd like to know more about how, and I can explain what's happening under the covers. I know exactly what he's talking about.
Well, if you'd like to, if you can do that, and I'll tell you for why, Richard, although we're doing this live, there is a bit of latency in all of the systems. So Richard's actually watching on Facebook. So if you can go through that briefly, then maybe Richard can come back in that time and just say exactly what he's using in terms of the client, whether he's using a Maestro or something else, a computer, I guess.
If he ran the cable to the radio, he's getting the audio. The radio was originally designed for CW, the core design, with the radio on the desk, like any old radio. You've got your headphones plugged in the back of the radio, and you've got your key plugged in the radio. Side tone is generated on the hardware device that you generate the CW. So that's why he has his 140 meter cable running. So the other thing is, how do we get him to send CW and sound normal? You want to look up, now that I think of it, Morconi, Morconi, and in your environment it will work beautifully. And I've got one over there, but it's a hardware appliance, sits on your desk, and it talks to the radio directly on your LAN because you're all on the same LAN, and you get the side tone right from the Morconi. And it's not expensive.
Okay. I haven't got an answer yet back from Richard.
We'll come back.
But yeah, we'll see if we can come back. Now, a comment from Tom G6TOM. Any chance of a Class D amplifier kit with all of the pre-processing, etc.?
No.
Okay.
It's a tire solution. Because you need to, if you notice where we got to the part where the amplification part happens, you actually have to have that as an IQ signal. Sure, maybe you could build it as an add-on to just grab the audio out of the radio, but then you're right at the audio level, so no, it's not practical to do. It's not economical to build. It could be a science project, but that's probably where it would end. It wouldn't be economical to bring to market. And to give you an idea, how much does it cost to build a radio to bring to market? So 5 years ago, to just build a radio, a superhet radio, we were pretty sure that the time you design it, pay staff, 100 watts, produce 100,000 of them, you better set aside about $1 million to get going. It's more today. Might go less with AI, but it's a lot of money. Then you got to pay people before you even send your first radio at the door.
You got to test it, yeah, and you got to build some stock and stuff like that, and hope it's going to sell.
You got to build one, and then you got to build 10, and then you got to build 100, and that's before you build a whole lot.
Do you feel that this is quite a competitive market? I mean, there are a lot of radio amateurs in the world, but there are I don't want to miss anybody out here, but maybe 5 mainstream manufacturers now. Would you agree?
In the HF world, you have ICOM, Yaesu, Elecraft, and us.
Yeah, okay. So
Kenwood hasn't done anything in HF.
No.
We don't know what they're doing. Probably it's easy for them to do VHF, UHF because they have a whole land mobile industry. But since JVC bought Kenwood, and that also means that and I don't know the early Kenwood history, but there's always some very well-known Japanese ham that brought the amateur stuff in Kenwood forward. But the question is there anybody that's high enough that controls the finances and the accounting that's also an amateur to fund it? I suspect now we have an accountant that sits up there. Not that there's anything wrong with that. Says I don't see the profitability.
No. Whereas,
sadly,
for example, ICOM was definitely run by an amateur first, probably. So he's going to be very passionate about it. And
Yaesu for that, yeah.
And for the figures that you've just given as well, the development maybe $1 million, pounds to develop any product actually is quite a lot of money for something that's fairly a niche market. It's not a mainstream consumer market, is it? Where you're going to sell millions and millions of products like iPhones or something like that. So, okay.
And ICOM, to their credit, hit it out of the park with the first 7300, right? They came with a very affordable radio with very good performance. I use one. I've got one right here. You can sort of.
I see the little power light flashing. Actually, yeah, because I've got one.
Oh yeah, it's probably haven't forgotten to turn it off for some testing about 3.5 weeks ago.
Yeah, well, that's a good advert as well. I mean, the fact that you're not just going to have, flex equipment in your shack. That's a good.
Yeah, it's on 40 meters.
Okay, excuse me. I've got that chat that we've just had has given us a good chance to get an answer from Richard. He said, thanks, we'll take a look. Using smart SDR and the direct connection for key and audio. That's what he's come back with. That was G4CDM. You should be able to hear the side tone come back with 4.1 now. But if you're not sure, drop me an email, mike@flexradio.com. Okay, thank you.
Tell me, but if you do send me an email, send me details.
Yeah, okay. Specific details.
In bullet format. Bullet format's easier for me to read.
All right. Yeah, sure. I know you are a very busy chap, and we really appreciate your time this evening as well. Jim G3YLA says, hi Mike, many thanks for the update on the Flex World. I've been a user for many years since the 3000 days, but something I've missed is band edge markers as part of the turf file maybe.
I can't say anything.
Right. Watch this space maybe that maybe is a cue too. Well, I think we've almost run out of questions now. And thank you very much for taking all of these. I know you're here mainly to talk about the Aurora, and there's a new kid on the block. Can I just go back to that? I can't remember the gentleman's name who now works for Flex, but who he didn't invent it, but he's maybe, should we say, embraced it and used it in the amateur world. Does that mean it is fairly exclusively Flex, or would other companies be free to use a similar technology?
You're talking about Gerald Youngblood?
No, not Gerald. No, the gentleman who brought the idea for in 2013. I think you said he worked on it, and then 2019 he came to work for you.
Oh, yeah, Tony.
For the Aurora stuff, yeah.
So that we don't own. I don't think we own a patent on it on envelope elimination and restoration. They are welcome to do their own development on it. It took us a few years to bring it to market, so they'll have a bit of a road ahead of them, but they certainly can.
Yeah, I mean, I know that Hans Summers, as you know, because I know
I was just going to say that. Yeah.
At the convention last year, we carried a film which was made with you and with Hans in the same room, talking about the same sort of technology, and in a different scale. He's also using that sort of linear, very efficient technology for his very small kits, isn't he?
Yeah, he's using a totally different. He's doing it totally different way with the same result, which to his credit. And that was such a fun interview. I mean, Hans is just such a wonderful person, right?
Absolutely.
And his passion, his I look at people. I'm going to plug him, but I look at and talk to Hans and go, I think I'm pretty smart. And then you sit down and talk to him, and his brain is in this cool. Yeah. He's just such an interesting person. He's a wonderful person.
Yeah, it is good. Well, there's room for everybody in this. Thank you very much for your candidates tonight, telling us both about the Aurora system and its development, but also taking all these other questions about random radios. By the way, I've got one more question just sneaked in here. Malcolm G3PDH says, Mike, great talk. Have the 6500, excellent radio for 10 years. Is the Aurora approved in the EU yet? He says.
Shortly.
Sorry?
We're just waiting for the rest of the EU certifications to go through.
So that's why it's not quite available to buy in the UK yet.
Yeah, my question was, why can't we ship it to the UK? But apparently the UK is following the EU in this.
Yeah.
I can't say what they are. I know they're very valid. It's on our radar daily, and to get it out the door.
Is this to do with EMC and that sort of thing, or to do with?
Yeah, I can't say. I don't have permission to say anything on it. So.
Okay. Oh, all right. Okay, but we hope to see it fairly soon then in this country. If you wanted to buy one, I guess. All right. All right.
Yeah, should be soon.
All right, Mike.
If you've got one on order. Geez, the funny thing about today too, I talked to my friends in the UK. It's 4:38 p.m. here, and in 3 hours I have a similar meeting with my VK friends.
Okay.
On Thursday morning.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Of course. Yeah. Different for you over there, Mike. Once again, thanks ever so much for this evening, bringing us up to date. It's been lovely to see you again. Do take care and give our best to everybody at Flex as well. Thank you.
We will do. Thank you. 7-3.
7-3. There we are. That's Mike from Flex Radio giving it's really good to have a manufacturer just like that, just willing to see there's clearly a real radio amateur too, sitting to give us a presentation on something, but also prepared to take questions on other things as well. So really support you and respect to Mike for doing that for us there. That's almost it for today. Thanks very much again to Mike VA3MW. Just a chance to remind you what's happening on the club this week. On Sunday we've got the GB2RS News at 7 o'clock. On Monday 7:30 the Monday Night Net on GB3MB. Please try and join and support that, because sometimes there's only sort of 3 or 4 people on that. Since Christmas, I think it's fair to say, Steve G3EVA, who hosts it, it hasn't really reset sort of after a little break at Christmas. So it'd be great if you're doing nothing else on a Monday night. You can get access to GB3MB. Have a 10-minute, quarter of an hour chat with the guys on there. And also we've got the CWNet at 8 p.m. as well on Mondays. And then next Wednesday, April the 1st, a very important date in our calendar. It is the annual general meeting of Norfolk Amateur Radio Club. We present awards. We look back at the last year. We have a look at the charities and how much money we've raised and who we're going to support this year. Plus, of course, the construction competition. As I said, anything at all that you have made yourself, whether it be a simple little kit that you made 5 years ago, whether it's something that you've created yourself, it's all about the construction and about sharing it with other people and sharing the love of construction, really, which is something now with just a lot of electronics fairly cheap, maybe not everybody gets into. So it's a great opportunity to show that off as well as entering the competition. And that's almost it. We look forward to hearing from you. By the way, mystery objects for our What on Earth, we're getting quite low again on numbers. So if you see anything around your house or your workshop that you think you might fox some people with, please do send us a picture with that. But until we meet next time in 2 weeks' time, from Tammy M0TC.
Bye-bye.
With your voice, almost got I know, and mine voice, David G7ERP. I look forward to seeing many of you at the AGM next week. Thanks for joining us. Good night.